The Council was falling apart. 3 days after the simultaneous attacks on their military infrastructure, chaos consumed every aspect of galactic governance. Species that had cooperated for centuries now turned on each other. Trade agreements were cancelled. Diplomatic relationships collapsed. Military alliances dissolved. And through it all, the human fleet continued its campaign. Captain Kim had led her battle group to 6 more systems in the past 72 hours. Each target was carefully selected. Military bases, weapons production facilities, fleet staging areas. Every location that could support Council military operations was identified and destroyed. The pattern was always the same. The human ships would arrive, eliminate any defensive forces, destroy the target, and move to the next system. The Council tried to mount a defense. They gathered what remained of their scattered fleets and attempted coordinated responses. It did not matter. Every time Council forces engaged the humans, they were destroyed. The technological gap was too large. Human weapons cut through Council shields and armor with ease. Human sensors detected Council ships long before they could respond. Human targeting systems rarely missed. Some Council species tried a different approach. They sent diplomatic messages to Earth, bypassing official Council channels. They offered apologies. They promised compensation for any wrongs. They begged for peace talks. Every message was ignored. Earth's government had made its position clear. There would be no negotiation until the Council's military capability was completely eliminated. Councillor Thaven watched his political career disintegrate. He had orchestrated the vote against Earth, believing humanity to be weak and easily controlled. Now his own species blamed him for the devastation being inflicted on Helion space. The orbital defenses around his homeworld were gone. The military shipyards in the outer Helion systems were destroyed. Thaven's people were defenseless, and they knew who was responsible. He tried to organize what he called a united response. He argued that all Council species needed to set aside their differences and face the human threat together. Few listened. Most species were more concerned with protecting their own systems. Some were quietly reaching out to Earth through back channels, hoping to negotiate separate peace agreements. Admiral Park watched it all from his command center. Intelligence reports flowed in constantly. Council communications were being intercepted and decoded. Human agents embedded in various Council worlds sent detailed reports. The picture was clear. The Council was not just defeated militarily. It was breaking apart politically. Director Choi joined Park in reviewing the latest strategic assessments. The Council had lost roughly 60% of its military infrastructure. Their fleet strength was reduced by 70%. Their ability to coordinate across multiple systems was nearly gone. From a military perspective, the Council was finished. But Park was not satisfied. Destroying the Council's military was Phase 1. Ensuring they could never threaten Earth again required Phase 2. And Phase 2 was about to begin. Choi pulled up a classified file on his display. The project had been given a simple name: Voidfall. It was the culmination of 30 years of weapons research. While the fleet was being built in the outer solar system, Earth's best scientists were developing something else. Something that would make conventional warfare obsolete. The technology was based on quantum disruption. Human researchers had discovered a way to interfere with the quantum states that held matter together at a fundamental level. Applied at scale, it could disable any electronic system instantly. Shields would collapse. Reactors would shut down. Weapons would stop functioning. The effect was temporary but devastating. A fleet hit by a voidfall weapon would be helpless for hours, and Earth had built 12 of them. Each one was mounted on a dedicated platform that could be deployed anywhere in Council space. The platforms were already in position, hidden in the outer reaches of key Council systems. They had been placed there over the past year, disguised as research probes. No one had noticed. Park made the decision. It was time to show the Council what humanity was truly capable of. He gave the authorization to activate Voidfall. Across 12 different star systems, the hidden platforms came online. They targeted the planetary defense networks of the Council's most important worlds. The platforms fired simultaneously. The effect was immediate and total. Defense satellites went dark. Orbital weapons platforms stopped responding. Ground-based shield generators shut down. Every military installation on those 12 worlds lost power at the same instant. The Council's most protected locations were suddenly completely vulnerable. Panic spread through Council space. If humanity could disable their defenses this easily, they could do anything. They could bombard planets from orbit. They could destroy entire civilizations. The Council worlds were at Earth's mercy. Park sent a message to all affected systems. It was broadcast on every channel, impossible to ignore. He told them that Earth had just demonstrated the ability to neutralize their defenses at will. That humanity had chosen not to follow up with bombardment or invasion. That Earth was not interested in conquest or genocide. But the message was clear. If the Council ever threatened humanity again, Earth would not hesitate to use this capability in a more permanent way. The demonstration lasted 6 hours. Then the effects of Voidfall wore off. The Council's systems came back online. Their defenses reactivated. But the damage was done. Every species in the Council now understood that Earth could render them helpless whenever it chose. Captain Kim received new orders. Her battle group was to proceed to Axis Prime, the Council's capital, the place where this had all begun. It was time for the final act. Ambassador Jiwoo had evacuated from the Council station days ago. She was now aboard one of Earth's ships, watching events unfold from a safe distance. She had witnessed the chaos in the Council chamber before she left. Representatives shouting at each other. Accusations flying, some species calling for complete surrender to Earth, others demanding they fight to the last ship. None of it mattered. The decision had already been made. Earth would dictate terms. The Council would accept them or cease to exist. Jiwoo reflected on how much had changed. Weeks ago, she had been a respected diplomat. She had friends among the Council species. She had believed in galactic cooperation. Now she watched as that entire system burned. Part of her mourned for what was lost. Part of her felt satisfaction watching those who betrayed Earth face the consequences. Mostly she felt tired. Tired of the lies. Tired of the politics. Tired of watching species that claimed to value peace show their true nature when it was convenient. Humanity had learned a harsh lesson. The galaxy did not reward kindness. It did not value cooperation. It respected only strength. Earth had tried to be a good neighbor. That had failed. Now Earth would be a powerful one. The galaxy would learn to live with that reality or suffer the consequences, the retribution, and its battle group jumped toward Axis Prime. 70 warships against whatever defenses the Council could muster around their capital. Given what had happened to every other Council force that faced humanity, Kim knew the outcome was not in doubt. Counselor Thaven received word that the human fleet was approaching. He made one last attempt to organize a defense. He called in every favor. He made desperate promises. He even threatened some species with consequences if they did not contribute ships to the defense of Axis Prime. In the end, 43 ships answered his call. It was pitiful compared to what the Council once commanded, but it was all that remained. Those ships took up positions around Axis Prime, prepared to make a final stand. Thaven knew they would lose. He had seen the reports from every engagement. Human technology was decades ahead of the Council's, but he felt obligated to try, to show that the Council would not surrender without resistance, that some dignity remained. The human fleet arrived at Axis Prime 3 hours later. They did not hesitate. They did not negotiate. They simply opened fire. The battle for the Council's capital had begun. The Council chamber was massive. It floated in space above Axis Prime, a neutral world where the galaxy's leaders met to make decisions. Inside the chamber, representatives from hundreds of species sat in curved rows that rose up like a stadium. Holographic displays showed data and images in the air. The place was designed to show power and unity. Ambassador Jiwoo Lee sat in Earth's designated seat. She had been humanity's voice in this chamber for 8 years. In that time, she had built friendships with dozens of species. She had negotiated trade deals, shared technology, and helped solve disputes. Today felt like any other session. She was wrong. The session began normally. Minor issues were discussed and voted on. Then Counselor Thaven rose to speak. He was from the Helian species, tall and thin with blue skin that shimmered under the lights. His species controlled 12 star systems and had significant influence in Council politics. When Thaven spoke, others listened. Thaven's voice echoed through the chamber. He spoke about economic problems that had affected several Council worlds over the past year. Trade routes were disrupted. Prices were unstable. Some species were struggling. Then he said something that made Jiwoo's blood run cold. He blamed Earth. Thaven presented data on his holographic display. He showed charts and reports that supposedly proved humans were manipulating markets. He claimed Earth was using its technology advantages unfairly. He said humanity was destabilizing the galactic economy for profit. Every word was a lie, but the data looked convincing. Jiwoo stood immediately. Her voice was calm but firm as she requested permission to respond. Thaven ignored her. He continued speaking, his tone growing more aggressive. He called for immediate action against Earth. He proposed severe economic sanctions. He suggested that military enforcement might be necessary. The chamber filled with murmurs. Jiwoo tried to speak again. This time the council speaker acknowledged her. She activated her own display and presented Earth's actual economic data. She showed how human trade had benefited dozens of species. She proved that the disruptions Thaven mentioned had nothing to do with Earth. She provided evidence that another species, one allied with Thaven, was actually responsible for the market manipulation. It did not matter. When Jiwoo finished, she expected discussion. Instead, the vote was called immediately. Species after species voted in favor of sanctions against Earth. The representatives Jiwoo had worked with for years, the ones she had helped and befriended, voted against humanity without hesitation. Even species that owed Earth significant debts voted for the sanctions. Jiwoo watched in horror as the numbers climbed. The vote was not close. It was overwhelming. Out of 374 council members, 312 voted for the sanctions. Only 47 voted against. The rest abstained. Then Thaven proposed the second measure. He called for military action to enforce the sanctions. He wanted a fleet dispatched to Earth immediately to establish a blockade and seize human assets across council space. Jiwoo could not believe what she was hearing. This was not policy. It was an act of war. The second vote passed even faster than the first. Jiwoo tried to contact her allies, the few species that had voted against the sanctions. None of them responded to her messages. She tried to request another hearing, to demand an investigation into Thaven's false evidence. The council speaker refused. The session was adjourned. The decision was final. As the chamber emptied, Jiwoo sat alone in Earth's seat. She felt numb. 50 years ago, humanity had made first contact with the council. They had been welcomed as new members. Earth had contributed advanced medical technology, agricultural methods, and manufacturing techniques. Humans had asked for little in return except friendship and fair trade. And now this. Jiwoo accessed the council's military network. The enforcement fleet was already being assembled. 200 warships from a dozen different species. The fleet would reach Earth in 3 days. She recorded everything she could access and transmitted it to Earth on an encrypted channel. The transmission reached Earth's central government within minutes. It also reached a hidden facility in the Kuiper Belt, far beyond Neptune. There, Admiral Taeyang Park received the message in his command center. He had been expecting it. Park was 63 years old. He had served in Earth's defense forces for 41 years. For the last 30 of those years, he had commanded a project that most of humanity did not know existed. The project had consumed enormous resources. It had required the work of hundreds of thousands of people. It had been built on a simple premise that humanity learned long ago. Hope for peace. Prepare for war. Park read Jiwoo's report carefully. He reviewed the vote counts, the false evidence, the coordinated betrayal. Then he opened a secure channel to Earth's government leaders. The conversation was brief. They gave him the authorization he needed. Protocol Nightfall was activated. Throughout the outer solar system, dormant facilities came to life. Power generators that had been idle for years roared online. Massive hangar doors opened in asteroids and ice moons. Ships that had been waiting in darkness powered up their reactors. Crews that had trained in secret for decades moved to their stations. Director Hyunwoo Choi arrived at Park's command center. Choi was the architect of Protocol Nightfall. 30 years ago, he had convinced Earth's leaders to invest in a secret defense force. He had argued that the council could not be fully trusted. That humanity needed insurance. That peace was valuable but survival was essential. Many had called him paranoid. Some had called him a warmonger. But enough leaders had listened. Resources were diverted quietly. Research facilities were built in the outer system where council sensors could not reach. The best engineers and scientists were recruited. Ships were designed and constructed, weapons were developed, and all of it was kept absolutely secret. Now as Choi stood beside Park and watched the fleet status displays turn green, he felt no satisfaction. He had hoped this day would never come, but he had prepared for it anyway. Park opened a fleet-wide channel. Thousands of personnel across hundreds of ships heard his voice. His message was simple. Humanity had sought peace. The Council had chosen war. Earth would now show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of when pushed to the edge. There would be no restraint, no mercy, no negotiation. The Council had made its decision. Now humanity would make theirs. The fleet began moving toward the inner system. 347 warships. More firepower than the Council had ever seen from a single species. More advanced technology than the Council believed possible. All of it hidden for 3 decades. All of it waiting for this moment. The Council's enforcement fleet was on its way to Earth. They expected to find a peaceful civilization with minimal defenses. They expected easy compliance with the Council's demands. They expected humanity to surrender without a fight. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Erebus Station was invisible to anyone who did not know exactly where to look. It sat in the darkness of the Kuiper Belt, surrounded by ice and rock. From the outside, it looked like a research facility studying the outer solar system. That was the official story. The truth was very different. The station was huge. It stretched across 15 kilometers of space. Most of it was built inside a hollowed-out dwarf planet. Inside were construction bays, weapons factories, training facilities, and living quarters for 20,000 personnel. For 30 years, people had worked here in absolute secrecy. Now their work was about to be revealed to the galaxy. Admiral Park stood in the main operations center. Holographic displays surrounded him, showing status reports from every ship in the fleet. Director Choi stood beside him, watching the numbers climb as more vessels came online. Choi pulled up a tactical display. 347 warships appeared as glowing dots on the screen. Each one was a technological marvel. The smallest vessels were destroyers, each one capable of matching 3 Council frigates. The cruisers were faster and better armed than anything the Council had. And then there were the dreadnoughts, 12 massive ships, each one 3 kilometers long. They carried weapons that could crack planets. Their shields could withstand sustained bombardment from entire fleets. Their reactors produced more power than some Council species used in their entire star systems. The flagship was called Retribution. It was the most powerful warship humanity had ever built. Captain Dayun Kim stood on the bridge of the Retribution. She was 38 years old and had commanded the ship through hundreds of training exercises. She knew every system, every weapon, every capability. Her crew of 2,000 were the best Earth had. They had trained for this moment for years. Kim reviewed the tactical data on her displays. The Council enforcement fleet was approaching Earth. 200 ships from 12 different species. By Council standards, it was a significant force. By Earth standards, it was inadequate. A communication channel opened. Admiral Park appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but determined. Behind him, the operations center buzzed with activity. Park's briefing was thorough. He explained the Council's betrayal, the false accusations, the coordinated vote. He described how humanity had been used as a scapegoat for problems they did not cause. He talked about the years of cooperation, the technology shared, the assistance provided. All of it thrown away because the Council found it convenient to blame Earth. Then he explained what would happen next. There would be no warning. No negotiation. No attempt at peaceful resolution. The Council had made its choice when it voted for military action against Earth. Humanity would respond with overwhelming force. The objective was not to defend. It was to destroy. The Council needed to understand that humanity was not weak. That human patience was not the same as human inability. That Earth had been holding back for 50 years, not because it had to, but because it chose to. That choice was over. Park opened a fleet-wide channel. Every ship, every crew member heard his words. He spoke calmly, almost conversationally. He reminded them why they had trained, why Protocol Nightfall existed. He told them that humanity had tried to be good neighbors. The galaxy had responded with betrayal. Now Earth would respond with strength. He said that some might question if this was right, if destroying the Council fleet was justified. He answered his own question. When someone comes to your home with weapons and demands your surrender, you have 2 choices. You can submit or you can fight. Earth had never been good at submitting. The fleet began moving. 347 warships accelerated toward the inner system. Their drives were more efficient than Council technology. Their navigation was more precise. They moved in perfect formation, coordinated by computer systems that processed data faster than any Council species could match. Director Choi watched them go. He felt a strange mixture of pride and sadness. Pride because the project had worked. 30 years of planning and construction had produced this incredible fleet. Sadness because it was being used. Because the peaceful future he had hoped for was not possible. Because humanity's attempt to join the galactic community had failed. But Choi was also practical. If peace was not possible, then survival was essential. And this fleet guaranteed Earth's survival. The Council Enforcement Fleet reached Earth's orbit 2 days after leaving Axis Prime. They were confident. Their ships outnumbered any known Earth defense forces by a significant margin. Their commanders expected quick compliance. Some even expected Earth to surrender before a single shot was fired. The fleet commander was a Vren named Kolash. His species had been part of the Council for 300 years. They were experienced warriors. Kolash had commanded fleets in 2 previous conflicts. He considered this mission routine. Humanity would protest, perhaps make some threats, but ultimately they would submit. They had no choice. Then his sensors officer reported something unusual. Multiple contacts were approaching from the outer system. Many contacts. Kolash ordered a detailed scan. The results made no sense. The scan showed over 300 warships. Large warships. Ships that matched no known human designs. Ships that should not exist. Kolash thought it was a sensor error. He ordered the scans repeated. The results were the same. He ordered visual confirmation. His fleet's telescopes focused on the approaching contacts. What they saw was impossible. A wall of warships was emerging from the outer solar system. They moved in perfect formation. Their design was sleek and aggressive. Power readings showed reactor outputs that exceeded Council technology by significant margins. Weapon signatures indicated armaments that should not be possible for a species as young as humanity. Kolash tried to open a communication channel with Earth's government. He wanted to understand what was happening. The channel opened, but the response did not come from Earth's civilian leaders. It came from Admiral Park. Park's message was brief. He thanked Kolash for coming all this way. He noted that the Council had voted to take military action against Earth. He said that Earth would now respond to that action. Then he closed the channel. Kolash tried to reopen communications. He wanted to negotiate, to understand, to find a peaceful solution. Park did not respond. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Kim watched the Council fleet on her tactical display. They were grouped in a standard blockade formation around Earth. It was a defensive position, designed to control access to the planet. It was also a position that left them vulnerable to a concentrated attack. Kim opened a channel to her weapons officers. She gave them their targets. The primary batteries would focus on the Council's capital ships. The missile tubes would saturate the space around their lighter vessels. The point defense systems would handle any return fire. The operation would be quick and absolute. Admiral Park gave the final order. All ships were cleared to engage. The human fleet opened fire. 347 warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Energy beams crossed the space between the fleets in seconds. Missiles accelerated to incredible speeds. Kinetic rounds followed precise trajectories. The Council fleet's shields lit up as they tried to deflect the incoming fire. They failed. The human weapons were designed to overcome Council shield technology. Beams punched through defensive barriers like they were not there. Missiles detonated with yields that exceeded Council estimates. Kinetic rounds hit with devastating force. Kolash watched in horror as his fleet died. Ships exploded. Hulls were torn apart. Reactors detonated. Within the first 30 seconds, he lost 40 vessels. Within the first minute, he lost 80. His own flagship was hit 3 times. The shields collapsed. Secondary explosions rippled through the ship. He tried to order a retreat. Most of his ships never received the command. They were already destroyed. The few that remained turned to run. The human fleet pursued them methodically. There would be no survivors. No witnesses except those Earth wanted to send a message. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, the entire Council enforcement fleet was gone. 200 warships reduced to debris. thousands of crew members dead, and floating in the space above Earth completely untouched was humanity's war fleet. News of the massacre spread across Council space within hours. Every species with ships in that enforcement fleet received the same report. Their vessels had arrived at Earth. They had been destroyed. There were no survivors. The transmissions from the battle showed something that terrified the Council. Humanity had a war fleet, a massive, technologically advanced war fleet that had appeared from nowhere. In the Council chamber, panic replaced order. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded an investigation into how humanity had hidden such a fleet. Others called for immediate military response. A few tried to suggest negotiation. Councillor Thaven stood at the center of it all, his confident expression replaced by something close to fear. Ambassador Jiwoo Lee watched the chaos from Earth's seat. She had not left the Council station. Part of her wanted to see how the species that betrayed humanity would react. Another part of her was gathering intelligence. She recorded everything, transmitted it all back to Earth. A communication request appeared on her display. It was Admiral Park. She accepted it. His face appeared on her screen, calm and composed despite what had just happened. Park told her that the first phase was complete. The Council's enforcement fleet was destroyed. Now came the second phase. Earth would not wait for the Council to organize another attack. Humanity would take the offensive. They would strike at Council military infrastructure across multiple systems. The objective was to eliminate the Council's ability to threaten Earth ever again. He asked Jiwoo if she wanted to evacuate. She said no. She wanted to stay and watch. She wanted to see the faces of those who had betrayed humanity when they realized what was coming. Park understood. He told her to be careful and closed the channel. The Council tried to open communications with Earth. They wanted to talk, to negotiate, to understand. Earth's government refused all contact. The message was clear. The time for talking had passed. The Council had voted for war. Now they would experience war. Admiral Park stood in the operations center aboard Erebus Station. Director Choi was with him along with the senior command staff. Holographic displays showed the positions of every human warship. The fleet had been divided into 5 battle groups. Each group had a specific target. Battle Group 1, commanded by Captain Kim aboard the Retribution, would strike at the Kalros system. It was the Council's largest military shipyard. Hundreds of vessels were built there every year. It was defended by a permanent fleet of 75 warships and multiple orbital defense platforms. By Council standards, it was impregnable. Battle Group 2 would hit the Dendros system, home to the Council's primary weapons research facility. Battle Group 3 would attack the Helian homeworld, Councillor Thaven's species. Battle Group 4 would destroy the Council's main logistics hub at the Vex system. Battle Group 5 would remain near Earth as a defensive reserve. All attacks would happen simultaneously. The Council would have no time to coordinate a response, no time to reinforce their positions, no time to evacuate their facilities. They would simply be destroyed. Park gave the order. The battle groups jumped to their targets. Captain Kim brought the Retribution and her task force into the Kalros system exactly on schedule. 70 human warships emerged from their jump points in perfect formation. Ahead of them, the massive shipyard complex orbited Kalros 4, a gas giant with dozens of moons. The shipyard was enormous. Construction bays stretched across hundreds of kilometers. Dozens of ships in various stages of completion sat in the yards. The defensive fleet was positioned in a protective sphere around the complex. Orbital weapons platforms added their firepower to the defenses. Kim studied the tactical display. The Council defenders were already responding to the human arrival. Ships were moving into attack formations. The platforms were charging their weapons. They had minutes before the Council forces opened fire. She decided not to give them those minutes. The Retribution fired first. Its main weapons were massive energy cannons that drew power directly from the ship's reactor core. Each shot released more energy than a small star. The beams crossed the space between the human fleet and the shipyard in seconds. They hit the nearest defense platform dead center. The platform's shields collapsed instantly. The structure exploded in a brilliant flash. The rest of the human fleet opened fire. Energy beams, missiles, and kinetic rounds filled the space around the shipyard. The Council's defensive fleet tried to respond, but they were outmatched. Human weapons were too powerful. Human shields were too strong. Human targeting was too accurate. One by one, the Council warships died. Hulls were torn open. Reactors exploded. Escape pods launched desperately into space. Kim felt no satisfaction watching them die. This was not about revenge. This was about sending a message. The Council needed to understand that Earth was not a victim. Earth was a threat. With the defensive fleet destroyed, the human task force turned its attention to the shipyard itself. Kim gave specific orders. The completed ships were to be destroyed. The construction bays were to be eliminated. The manufacturing facilities were to be reduced to rubble. Nothing was to remain functional. The bombardment was methodical. The Retribution's weapons carved through the shipyard's structure like a blade through paper. Secondary explosions rippled through the complex as fuel stores and ammunition magazines detonated. Ships that were nearly complete were blown apart before they could ever launch. Construction equipment melted under the intensity of the human weapons fire. It took 3 hours to completely destroy the Kalros shipyard. When the human fleet finished, nothing remained but debris. Decades of construction, billions in resources, hundreds of ships, all of it was gone. Kim received reports from the other battle groups. All of them were successful. The weapons research facility at Dendros was destroyed. The logistics hub at Vex was eliminated. The Helian homeworld's orbital defenses were reduced to wreckage. Every target had been hit. Every objective achieved. And most importantly, every human ship was intact. The Council had lost thousands of ships and countless personnel. Humanity had lost nothing. Back at the Council chamber, the reports arrived. Jiwoo watched as the representatives processed what had happened. Multiple star systems attacked simultaneously. Military infrastructure destroyed, defensive fleets annihilated, and the human warships had suffered no losses. The Council realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had not attacked a weak species. They had attacked a sleeping giant. And now that giant was awake and very, very angry, Councillor Thaven tried to call for calm. He suggested they attempt to negotiate with Earth. Several representatives shouted him down. Some blamed him for starting this catastrophe. Others called for his removal from the Council. A few species announced they were withdrawing from the Council entirely. Jiwoo decided it was time to speak. She requested permission to address the Council. The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to Earth's ambassador. She spoke calmly, her voice clear and steady. She reminded them of Earth's 50 years in the Council. She listed the technologies humanity had shared, the medical advances that saved millions of lives, the agricultural methods that ended famines, the manufacturing techniques that boosted economies. She reminded them that Earth had asked for nothing except friendship and fair treatment. Then she described the betrayal, the false accusations, the coordinated vote, the military action authorized against her people. She said that humanity had come to the Council in peace. The Council had responded with treachery. She told them that Earth had tried to be good neighbors. But the galaxy had shown humanity that being good was not enough, that trust was not valued, that cooperation was seen as weakness. The Council had taught Earth a lesson. Now Earth would teach the Council one in return. She said that this was just the beginning, that Earth's fleet would continue its operations until the Council's ability to threaten humanity was completely eliminated, that there would be no negotiation, no mercy, no forgiveness. The Council had wanted war. Now they would experience what war with humanity truly meant. Then she closed her communication link and prepared to evacuate the station. Her message was delivered. Her work here was done. Admiral Park received her transmission. He smiled grimly. Jiwoo had done well. The Council now understood that this was not a defensive action. This was a war of annihilation, and Earth was winning. The defense of Axis Prime lasted 9 minutes. The 43 Council warships fought bravely. They maintained formation and followed their orders. They fired their weapons and tried to coordinate their attacks. None of it mattered. Captain Kim's battle group tore through them like they were made of paper. Energy beams destroyed ships in single hits. Missiles overwhelmed point defenses. Kinetic rounds punched through hulls and detonated reactors. By the time the last Council ship exploded, the human fleet had not suffered a single casualty. Not one damaged system, not one shield failure. The technological superiority was absolute. With the defensive fleet eliminated, the human warships turned their attention to Axis Prime itself. The planet was beautiful from orbit. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It had been chosen as the Council's neutral meeting ground centuries ago precisely because it was so peaceful. Now it would witness the end of the Galactic Order. Captain Kim received a transmission from Admiral Park. He was broadcasting to the entire galaxy, ensuring every species heard his words. Kim listened as Park's voice echoed across all communication channels. Park began by reviewing Earth's history with the Council. 50 years of membership, contributions of technology and knowledge, medical advances that saved billions of lives across dozens of worlds, agricultural techniques that ended famines, manufacturing methods that boosted economies. All of it given freely, asking only for friendship and fair treatment in return. Then he described the betrayal, the false accusations, the coordinated vote, the military action authorized without justification. He explained that the Council had used humanity as a convenient scapegoat, sacrificing Earth to distract from their own failures. Park's tone remained calm and measured as he detailed what happened next. Earth's response was not emotional. It was calculated. Humanity had prepared for this possibility. While Earth's diplomats worked for peace, Earth's military prepared for war. Not because humanity wanted conflict, but because they understood that good intentions were not enough protection against those who valued power over principle. He described the destruction of the Council's military infrastructure, the elimination of their fleets, the demonstration of voidfall technology. Every action was deliberate. Every strike was measured. Earth did not act out of rage. They acted out of necessity. The Council had made itself a threat to humanity's survival. Earth had removed that threat. Then Park made his announcement. The Galactic Council as a governing body was hereby dissolved by force. The institution that had ruled for over 1,000 years no longer existed. In its place, Earth would establish a new order based on a simple principle. Any species that threatened human interests would face immediate and overwhelming military response. Any species that chose peaceful coexistence would be left alone. There would be no galactic government, no central authority, no council to arbitrate disputes. Each species would be responsible for its own security. Earth would maintain military forces throughout the galaxy, not to conquer but to ensure that no single power could ever threaten humanity again. The terms were non-negotiable. Accept them or face annihilation. Park ended his broadcast with a final message to Counselor Thaven specifically. He thanked Thaven for teaching humanity an important lesson. That trust was a weakness in galactic politics. That cooperation was seen as vulnerability. That the only language the galaxy truly understood was force. Earth had learned that lesson well. Now the galaxy would learn what happened when you taught that lesson to the wrong species. Captain Kim received her orders. The council chamber itself was the final target. The building that symbolized galactic unity would be destroyed as a monument to the council's betrayal. Kim targeted the structure with precision weapons. She wanted it erased completely. The bombardment began. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, striking the council chamber with devastating accuracy. The building's shields lasted seconds. Then the structure itself began to disintegrate. Walls collapsed. Towers fell. The great dome where representatives had met for centuries cracked and shattered. Within minutes, nothing remained but rubble and smoke. Counselor Thaven watched from a bunker beneath the city. He saw the feeds showing the destruction above. His life's work was being erased before his eyes. He had risen to power through clever politics and strategic alliances. He had orchestrated the vote against Earth, believing it would strengthen his position. Instead, it had destroyed everything. He tried to send a message to the human fleet, a plea for mercy, an offer of complete surrender, anything to stop the destruction. The message was never acknowledged. Earth was not interested in apologies from those who only regretted losing. Ambassador Jiwoo Lee watched the destruction from aboard her ship. She felt a complex mixture of emotions: satisfaction that those who betrayed humanity were facing consequences, sadness that it had come to this, relief that Earth had survived, concern about what kind of galaxy they had created. She thought about her years as Earth's ambassador, the friendships she had built, the compromises she had negotiated, the belief that different species could work together for common good. All of it had been proven naive. The galaxy did not work that way. Power was the only currency that mattered. But Jiwoo also understood that Earth had not wanted this. Humanity had genuinely tried to be good members of the galactic community. They had contributed more than they took. They had sought cooperation over conflict. It was the Council that had changed the rules. Earth had simply adapted to the reality the Council created. Director Choi stood with Admiral Park in the Operations Center. They watched as reports came in from across the galaxy. Council species were accepting Earth's terms, some reluctantly, some with relief. A few tried to organize resistance, but their neighbors quickly convinced them otherwise. No one wanted to be the next target of Earth's fleet. Choi reflected on the 30 years he had spent building Protocol Nightfall. All the resources, all the secrecy, all the planning. He had been called paranoid, accused of wasting resources on an unnecessary project, told that the Council would never betray Earth. He had been proven right, but there was no satisfaction in it. Being right meant the worst had happened. Park gave orders to deploy the fleet across Council space. Battle groups would maintain positions in key systems. Patrol routes would be established. Monitoring stations would be built. Earth would enforce the new order not through governance but through presence. The galaxy would know that human ships were out there, watching, ready to respond to any threat. Over the following weeks, the new reality settled in. Trade resumed, but now species negotiated directly with each other instead of through Council bureaucracy. Disputes were resolved through bilateral talks or avoided entirely. No one wanted to risk conflict that might attract Earth's attention. The galaxy had become quieter, more cautious, more afraid. Captain Kim kept the Retribution stationed above Axis Prime. The planet that had hosted the Council now served as a reminder of what happened when you betrayed humanity. The rubble of the Council chamber remained untouched. Earth wanted it visible from orbit, a permanent monument to the consequences of treachery. Some species tried to rebuild relationships with Earth. They sent diplomatic envoys with gifts and apologies. Earth accepted some of these overtures, but the relationship was different now. There was no trust, no genuine friendship, just mutual interests backed by the understanding that Earth held overwhelming military power. Ambassador Ji-woo returned to Earth after 3 months. She was given a new position in the government, helping to shape humanity's foreign policy in the post-Council galaxy. Her experience gave her valuable perspective. She understood both the hope of cooperation and the reality of power politics. She often thought about what had been lost, the potential for genuine galactic community, the possibility of different species working together toward common goals, the dream of a peaceful, cooperative future. The Council's betrayal had killed those possibilities. Now the galaxy was ruled by fear rather than hope. But Ji-woo also recognized what had been gained. Earth's security was assured. No species would dare threaten humanity. Human colonies could expand without fear. Earth's people were safe. Perhaps that was enough. Perhaps that was all that could be expected in a galaxy that valued strength over principle. Admiral Park remained in command of Earth's military forces. He maintained Protocol Nightfall at full readiness. The fleet continued to grow. New weapons were developed. New technologies were tested. Earth would never again be caught unprepared. Never again trust in the goodwill of others. Never again mistake peace for safety. The galaxy had taught humanity a harsh lesson about the nature of power and survival. Earth had learned it well, and now, with the Council destroyed and human warships maintaining watch over the remnants of galactic civilization, every species understood a new truth. Humanity had entered the galactic stage seeking friendship. They had been answered with betrayal. They had responded with overwhelming force. The Council had believed humans were weak because they chose peace. They discovered too late that human restraint was never inability. It was mercy, and mercy, once betrayed, became something far more dangerous. The galaxy would not forget that lesson for a very long time.